It's week 11. This week is all about project evaluation. Project evaluation is an assessment of the progress of your project towards meeting the goals and objectives. A project evaluation plan is often an important part of the original grant proposal. It is also a key part of grant management. Readings for this week include Chapter 5 of our course text, as well as supplemental readings posted in Moodle. And assignments include a discussion forum, quiz, and assignment number 11, where you will review an evaluation plan that was submitted as part of the proposal and develop a plan to implement the evaluation plan. Evaluation is an important process throughout the life of a grant-funded project, including during the initial implementation of your project. This is why it's important to have a well-thought-out evaluation plan before the start of your project. In many instances, funders will require an evaluation plan as part of the grant proposal. Grantors want to know that organizations have a plan to both carry out the activities of the project and one to assess if the activities and work are progressing to the project goals and objectives of the project. An evaluation plan puts in place the tools necessary to gather data needed for evaluation from the start of the project, and the ongoing review and monitoring of this data is another key part of grant management. For example, let's say your project will begin a new math tutoring program at BMCC. Your project hired tutors and hosted tutoring sessions for a year, but how do you know these tutoring sessions were helpful? Just because you hire some tutors does not mean that you've met your project goals. How do you know that your project is successful? How do you know that your programming has helped students with their math skills? To understand the progress of your project, you need to gather data and evaluate it along the way. In this instance, this can be done by tracking the number of students who participate in tutoring sessions, reviewing their math assessment scores at different points along the semester timeline, and through student and faculty surveys or interviews. Tracking the number of student participants can show the level of interest in tutoring sessions or if there's a possible gap in advertising or outreach of such services. If only 5 students have signed up for tutoring sessions in the first 3 months, why is this? Are students just not interested? Or do they not know that this opportunity exists? If you have this data, then you can start to think about ways to address it, such as bringing tutoring sessions into the classroom or other community spaces. Perhaps implementing a print or social media marketing campaign to disseminate information about tutoring opportunities through your project. Further, a review of math assessment scores may show you an increase in overall scores, lending to the assumption that your tutoring program is working. Or it could show no improvement, in which case your program may want to try and adjust how tutoring is delivered. This could be the frequency, the content, or something else. You could also interview students to see what they like about the program and what they think could be better, or faculty members to gather their input on how to improve services. These are all evaluation practices that help to understand how your program is working. Evaluation can be carried out on any type of project or program. The math tutoring program is just an example. Evaluation tools can be put in place to gather information on all types of programs, from infrastructure-based projects to service programs to research projects. Types of evaluation. There are many different types of evaluation. 2 common types include formative and summative evaluation. Formative evaluation includes evaluation strategies that are implemented throughout the life of the project to assess if the project is working as intended. Formative evaluation is intended to monitor progress and provide feedback along the way. Using the math tutoring program example that we just talked about, a method of formative evaluation in this program could be direct student interviews to gather information on the progress of implementation, such as were they able to access the service or did they feel like the instruction provided enough guidance. Summative evaluation includes evaluation strategies implemented at the end of a project period. Summative evaluation is intended to measure success through a comparison to a specific benchmark. In this case, quantitative and qualitative data can be gathered to determine the success in achieving objectives and whether intended outcomes were met. Using the math tutoring program example again, a summative evaluation method could be an analysis of tutoring program participants' test scores before tutoring began and after receiving services. Obviously, a positive change in test scores indicates the success of the project. Many evaluation plans include aspects of both formative and summative evaluation, and this should be tailored to the individual project and the obligation to report project deliverables. Project directors and principal investigators should set clear criteria for evaluating the project's success, including the relevance of the method to the project. Participant interviews may not be a relevant evaluation method for an infrastructure project, or a document review may not be possible if this is not information that's captured by the program. Every project is different, so it should be evaluated differently if it's to be an efficient and useful evaluation. The intent of this process is to learn about how the project is working, not to just create busy work for program staff. Program evaluation uses many different methods and tools to assess progress and effectiveness. Both quantitative and qualitative data can be collected. Quantitative data is data collected using numbers and can be numerically analyzed, such as the percentage of students who passed a test, or the number of participants who reported satisfaction with a program. Quantitative data can be measured. Qualitative data is not collected using numbers, but describes opinions, feelings, and other non-numerical data, such as faculty's observation that their students are feeling uneasy about an assignment, or that they appear to be disengaged in class. Qualitative data can be observed. Let's talk about a handful of the most common evaluation methods and tools. This is not an exhaustive list. There are many more tools and methods, but these examples are popular methods to gather data in an evaluation process. Surveys. Surveys and questionnaires are used to gather information from program participants or program stakeholders. The data gathered from this method will help show program satisfaction and impact. An example of this type of evaluation method in the math tutoring program would be a short satisfaction survey for student participants administered on the first day of tutoring and at the final meeting of the semester. Survey questions on a Likert scale, like a rating scale of 1 to 10 or a scale of very satisfied to not satisfied, could gauge a student's understanding of access to this resource, and open-ended questions can capture qualitative information such as participants' improvement, suggestions, or overall experience. Interviews. Interviews are intended to gather more qualitative data from participants or stakeholders. Collected data will highlight themes around a participant's experience and improvement recommendations. Focus groups. Focus groups are small group discussions led by a facilitator to explore specific topics and give participants the opportunity to share their insight with peers in a semi-informal discussion. Evaluators are often able to distinguish common themes in programs from data gathered from interviews and from focus groups. Observations. In this method, program staff observe program activities and record data on program activities and behaviors. An evaluator may observe a common practice or issue that is impacting the project, either negatively, where adjustments should be made, or positively, where activities could be enhanced or expanded. Document review. This method is a review of project-related documents, such as reports and communications from the project to assess progress. For example, the analysis of the progress and financial reporting or meeting notes from advisory committee meetings. Data analysis. This method often involves the analysis of quantitative data to measure progress. Was there an increase in test scores of student participants in the tutoring program? Well, review the test scores and see what the numbers say. Or an analysis of qualitative themes identified from one of your focus groups. Another consideration of implementing a project evaluation plan is to identify the need of the project for an internal or external evaluator for your project. An internal evaluator is someone within the grantee's organization, while an external evaluator is just that, someone external to the organization. Some funders will require programs to include external evaluators in their proposed project, and if this is the case, this expense should be built into the proposal budget to ensure that there are funds to pay for this service. There are pros and cons to both internal and external evaluation. Internal evaluators often have a greater knowledge of how the program was structured, as they may have been involved in the development of the program. They may also have a better understanding of processes and procedures within the organization. However, there's also a greater potential for bias when evaluating the progress of an organization one works for, especially if you are involved in the development of the program. An internal evaluator, often an employee of the entity implementing the program, will likely want the program to be successful, and thus is at risk of overlooking or justifying areas of concern. External evaluators are independent from the funded organization and can be an individual or another organization. External evaluators decrease the opportunity for bias in program assessment, as they have less of an investment in the organization and can often see programs from a different perspective that does not cloud assessment. Internal evaluators can also be more pricey than external evaluators can also be more pricey than internal evaluators who perform evaluation services often as a part of their project involvement. Some programs may implement a combination of internal and external evaluation methods to review all aspects of a program. The needs and details of each project need to be considered when developing and implementing the evaluation plan. An evaluation plan is intended to assess the progress and success of the program. This can be achieved with ongoing monitoring. To be successful at the monitoring of a program, it's important to establish clear indicators that are relevant to the program and that can be identified and tracked. You cannot assess the success of a community health campaign if you do not measure the knowledge gained by participants, and you cannot measure knowledge gained without a baseline to start from. Program evaluation often includes a data collection plan that identifies what data needs to be collected and outlines steps for collecting relevant data to measure progress towards your indicators. To measure progress towards your indicators, projects need to identify the baseline data and do so before the project starts or towards the beginning to know where a project is starting from. For example, BMCC's TRIO program offers various student success support services. One of the areas that the program tracks is student retention, or students continuing in their programs of study. To help gauge if student support services are successful in helping retention rates, the program needs to know what the retention rate is at the beginning of the review period for the program. If the student retention rate was 70% in 2021, and the data shows that this rate is at 75% in 2022 and 80% in 2023, this is an indicator that services are helping to support retention rates. If you did not have a base rate to compare to, the rates for the past 2 years are hard to understand from an evaluation perspective. It is also important to put in place regular data collection in your plan. This can be achieved through the methods and tools we just talked about, such as surveys or focus groups. It is helpful to have a schedule to collect this information at the implementation of the project all the way through the end. The data you collect should also be quality data. What do I mean by this? Quality data is data that is accurate and reliable. It's important to ensure that the methods you use to collect data are designed to collect and store information to maintain accuracy and to work with your organization's departments on the data that is collected to understand exactly where it comes from. With quality data, you will have a more accurate data analysis where you can compare newly collected data to baseline data to assess progress. One of the most useful parts of ongoing monitoring is the ability to use the assessment to make project adjustments as the project progresses. If data shows that something is not working, that's completely okay. You now have the opportunity to adjust services and activities, or even scratch parts of your original project. Most funders will not expect a program to continue operating if data shows it's not working at all or progressing towards your project goals. Adjust for success.